I told you, Amal Shaw, I teased you, and you guessed Miami off the jump. But I said this morning I was crunching some numbers, whether you want to call it averages, metrics, and I established one team of the Final Four here. So again, UConn minus 125, San Diego State, your second betting favorite over DraftKings at plus 370. Miami's plus 475, and then FAU at 6.5 to 1. So I established we're going to throw up the blind resumes, and the blind resumes consist of this: average as far as points scored in the tournament, average as far as how much these four teams are giving up in the tournament, the winning margin, of course, the rank, the path that they've gotten here. They've all won. What is the winning average margin here and the average margin of victory? Average combined score. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with C, okay? You see on your screen there, points for Team C, 66.5 scored. Points against, 57.25. Margin of victory for Team C, Final Four, 9.25. And then combined score of the games for Team C, 123. Who is that team?
Well, I'm going to go with San Diego State.
You're going to go with San Diego State, and you would be correct. So let's take a look. San Diego State, obviously not an offensive juggernaut. They're averaging just 66.5 points a game. But that defense, Amal, right? What stands out here? They're only giving up 57.25, and they're winning by an average of 9.25. Combined score for San Diego State, no surprise, the lowest of the Final Four at 123. Anything stand out as far as the numbers there? Points for, points against, margin of victory, and combined score for San Diego State?
Yeah, points against, because when you think about the fact that they have played College of Charleston, one of the highest scoring teams during the regular season. I get they're a mid-major. Furman's a pretty good team. We know they had a bunch of upperclassmen. And then the real key to me was slowing down Alabama and Creighton. I mean, holding Creighton to 23 points in the second half.
Crazy.
I went through every game after the first round of the tournament on the Thursday, Friday. If you look at the second round going forward, there were only 3 other teams that had that many points or fewer in a second half, 23 points or less. It was incredible.
Wild. That is wild. All right, so you're 1 for 1. Team C was indeed San Diego State. We'll throw up the graphic. Team D. So this team is scoring an average of 71.25 in the tournament. They're giving up 66.5 in the tournament. Their margin of victory in the 4 games they've played, 4.75. That's the lowest of the 4. And combined score for Team D, 137.75. Who is Team D?
Well, that's going to be easy. That's going to be Florida Atlantic just based on margin of victory.
That is. Give me a quick synopsis of what you see there. 71 scored, 66 against.
I think the thing when you look at FAU is they're simply not overwhelmed. They've got experience, even though some of their guys are younger. They just don't get overwhelmed by the moment. I thought, Patrick, the best opportunity for them was to fold against Tennessee, down 7 to 9 points. They slowly, methodically come back in the second half, and they never relinquish the lead.
Team B is averaging a little over 81 points per. That's better than their season average. They're giving up 70.25. They're winning by a margin of 11 points, and their combined score 151.5. Who's Team B?
That would be Miami.
That is correct. Now we get to Team A, and why I think I established this morning that this team should be a tournament bet right now at minus 125 over at DraftKings. This team is scoring 81.75. They're giving up just 59.25. They're winning by an average of 22.5 points, and their combined score is 141. Of course, Amal Shaw, that is your UConn Huskies. What stands out there, and you can see it on your screen, they're scoring over 81 points a game. They're giving up just 59, a little north of 59. Think about that. You juxtapose it to San Diego State, best defense left in the tournament, and they're giving up 57.25. So UConn also defending almost as well as San Diego State. And you take a look at the odds over at DraftKings on the tournament, they're only minus 125 to win it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, to me, the biggest turnaround has been Jordan Hawkins in the last 4 games in terms of three-point shooting. He has just been stellar. 6 for 9 from the three-point line, 3 for 9, 4 for 5, 3 for 7. I mean, Patrick, that is absolutely off the charts in terms of what he was able to do. 16 for 31.
Incredible. Let's throw up the graphic. That looks great. Thank you, Liz. Throw that up there with the teams, and you can kind of see the logos. And for those that are kind of visually inclined, that may help you digest the points for, against, margin of victory, and combined points. You see, really, there's one disparity, and that is what UConn's doing as compared to the other 3 teams in the Final Four. Now, as far as paths, because this is going to have an impact on how much you're giving up, how much you're scoring, margin of victory, it's very apparent to me that Team B Miami had by far the toughest path to the Final Four. Okay, they beat a 12 seed in Drake. Then they beat a good Indiana team and looked really good in the process, doing it 85-69. So you take a look here. But this is where it gets, look, many had Houston winning it all. Many had Texas winning it all. Those are two big, huge wins from Miami. To me, that's the toughest path of the Final Four remaining.
Yeah, I thought the most impressive thing was they had the come-from-behind victory against Drake. Late 4 minutes to go, they were trailing. I mean, they weren't down by an astronomical amount. They were down by, I think, by a handful of points. But to come back against Texas, down 10 with 10 minutes to go, trailing by, I think, as much as 13 or 14 in that second half was really impressive. You know, it's funny. Texas, we mentioned yesterday, signed Rodney Terry to an extension. He didn't use his timeouts, Patrick. I thought there were some opportunities to use some timeouts to stem the tide. Give Miami credit. They played to their strengths. They went on the perimeter. And even though they weren't shooting a lot of three-point shots, they used isolation basketball, and they did a great job. And that's where I think Miami's a tough out. And I thought you brought up a great point. They had the toughest challenge getting here.
Okay, so you tell me if I got this correct, because I have number 2, toughest path to the Final Four, San Diego State.
Yes.
So they scrap by Charleston. They get by Furman, a 13 seed. But here's where it gets interesting. Everybody that came on Sharp Money here on VSiN told us the best team in the country was Bama. They beat up Bama and did it. They absolutely shut them down. Their strengths, they launched threes. They defended the perimeter. They never let them get out in transition. That was a masterclass by Dutcher and San Diego State. And then they beat Creighton. Creighton's a very good basketball team. I have them 2 as far as toughest path.
I would agree with you on the breakdown of the paths that you have. To me, though, that Dutcher tape for the last 2 games should be an absolute clinic in terms of how to slow down fast break and tempo teams and not letting them get out and run. If you're not watching what the Aztecs did in the last 2 games, I don't know what the hell you're doing as a head coach. By the way, our good friend and a terrific coach in Iowa City, Fran McCaffrey, you might want to try that once or twice in his life.
So again, we're trying to make the point that UConn is somehow undervalued here with the 4 teams standing at -125 to win it all over at DraftKings. I got them 3 as far as toughest path. We'll throw it up here. Iona in the first round, St. Mary's, really, really good defensive team. They scored 70 on them. Arkansas was never a game, 88-65. Then Gonzaga, equally never a game. This is a team right now, -125 for the tournament that's peaking in UConn. I got them 3rd here.
Yeah, you'd have to go back. When was the last time the Zags lost a game by 28 points? I mean, that's just impressive. How about this is even more impressive? We talked about the Aztecs holding Creighton to 23 in the second half. Connecticut held the Zags to 22 points in the second half on Saturday.
Yeah, incredible performances against Arkansas and Gonzaga, to be honest. And St. Mary's, they played really well. Iona, I'm not throwing in the mix just because they just absolutely out-talent them.
Yeah.
And as far as size, it's really not a question. I think Hawkins, I think you've said it perfectly with your breakdown. Hawkins, a huge key here. And then 4, as far as paths to the Final Four, they're 6.5 to 1 to win it all over at DraftKings. FAU, Memphis, they squeak by a 1-point win. Remember, their margin of victory under 5 here for FAU. FDU, they struggled against a 16 seed. Tennessee, to me, that was probably their best performance.
Yes.
And then Kansas State, who they out-rebounded by 20, but just beat them by 3. To me, that's the 4th toughest path to the Final Four, FAU.
I would agree with you, and they've won all 4 games by a combined 19 points. This team has done a tremendous job. They're not going to remind anybody of the untouchables in 96 from Kentucky, who I think won by an average of 21 points per game. But when you look at this team, you got to give them a ton of credit. Look, if Connecticut didn't have the size factor that they have and just the talent, NBA talent compared to everybody else, and let's say you take a team in there that's a little bit smaller, Patrick, I genuinely believe FAU, San Diego State, Miami, or whomever that fourth team would have been could win this whole thing. I'm not saying that Connecticut's a slam dunk, but I would not be shocked based on the way these teams have performed that any of these other teams could win this national title.
So our hypothesis, because again, you're going to lay a bigger price than $1.25 money line here, Final Four money line. In the finals, the $1.25 right now, a good price to win it all over at DraftKings for UConn.
Yeah, I mean, right now they're -240 on the money line, and if you look at it, they're going to be a favorite against whomever they play at a larger number. So I think the -125 is a good bet here because they're going to be against SDSU or FAU, probably about a -$3 favorite on the money line. I think it's going to be about a 7.5 point line.
Right now, they're almost $2.60 on the money line against Miami. I think they're going to be closer to $3, FAU, San Diego State. So, again, you can jump over to DraftKings and lay $1.25 tournament odds on UConn.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.